One of the most mind-blowing discoveries that I've made in my life is that what you are able to create in your life, what you are able to do, is very influenced by what you let come in this brain right here. I've been at home and I've talked with my sister about it. Like, that brain you're using right now is the brain you're going to use to help console your future children. It's going to help you do future homework assignments in college. It is extremely powerful, and you need to be very diligent and wary of it, and it can do so much good for you. I wanted to talk about one of the best habits you can have to have good thought, brain health. Obviously, I'm not like a brain scientist or anything, but I have had some pretty good observations, I feel, from just my overall life and experiences having this brain and having a lot of different poetry ideas, book ideas, all these podcast ideas. I have people all the time asking me, how do I come up with podcast ideas? I am constantly subjecting myself to things that I think are going to help me have a lot of good ideas and help me have a lot of good stuff to come up with. In short, I give my brain a lot of good brain food. And this is something that I learned very early on in my life with my first YouTube channel, was that if I wanted to have really good commentary, I needed to be optimizing everything in my environment towards that end. So I'd be playing video games that I knew I would talk about, or I wouldn't watch like really any TV shows. I was watching other YouTubers and stuff, how they talked about those games, so I would have good things to bring to the table. And now with my podcast and other things that I'm doing, I'm focusing on generally getting things just for the thought aspect. I play video games mostly to get thoughts and vibes and experiences from them and thought food. We're going to be talking about three very important things you need to keep in mind when it comes to any kind of thought food. The first thing you need to understand before we jump into this is that even you right now are taking in tons of information. I read something insane recently that your eyes are processing like millions of bits of information every second. Like, and I personally have a super good memory. I don't know how good of a memory you have, but you probably remember some things you wouldn't like to remember. And there's other things that you are so glad you remember, and they help you remember that you're a wonderful person. My what I wanted to share with you briefly is that all of that can be influenced, and you can start having a very good information thought food diet starting today to help you become your best self, help your brain become as mighty as it possibly can be. And this is something that is talked about in the book The Magic of Thinking Big, Your Thought Diet. So basically this is a little bit of a application of that, how you can do that. With that super long intro, so we're going to be talking about the amount of thought food that you're digesting on a regular basis, when you are digesting it, and the provider and intent of that thought food. As always, if the podcast is helping you become a better person and helping you just optimize your overall self-care and your ability to love yourself, definitely follow the podcast. That's what we're all about. With that all said, we'll just jump right into it. The first thing you really need to have in mind is how much are you taking in of this thought food. You need to be also on any given day, it's very easy to take in so much information that we get into this thought paralysis or just analysis paralysis kind of thing. And I experienced this a lot last semester. I was like, I could work on my podcast right now, or I could work on a YouTube channel that should have been finished a while ago. And having all these thoughts, you don't really know like what to work on next, and it ends up holding you back. And my thing I want to come to with this is I didn't need any more consumption. Even to do this podcast, like I think I need consumption, and honestly I really don't. Like with this particular podcast episode, I did like 10 minutes of research for it, doing a podcast research using a podcast research playlist I made recently that I'm actually super hype about. So that is a really good thing to me, is like recognizing that makes a difference for me. So that's something to keep in mind in the future. And with that research process, I was really just looking at a blank page and writing things that came to mind and just kind of thinking around and stuff. I didn't really do a ton of research. But the thought is that you have to be aware of how much you're taking in. You don't have to take in a certain amount of information on any given day. You could honestly delete all your social media apps for a day, and I'm sure it would help you. You could just do that for one day. Like I did that when I was doing Facebook Lives, and I realized I haven't done a Facebook Live in forever, and that's because I've been busy and not focusing on Facebook at all. But you need to, but but the thought is that you have to be acting on what you're learning so you can be able to use it so it can be crystallized. When you have this thought food and you make it into and you use it, it helps you grow a lot more and helps you become a better version of yourself. And too much thought food can slowly start to be more like thought poison. And thought poison just kind of holds you back, kind of hurts your brain a little bit in a bad way, and just kind of gets in the way of things. It's just an obstacle. And so if you're not careful, what seems very good can become an obstacle. And you have to be very aware of, okay, what is this going to do for me? Why am I doing this? Not everybody does this. I don't think everybody has to do this. But for me, I have to be very careful of, like, why am I watching this YouTube video? Why am I watching this movie? What am I hoping to get out of it? What am I, what kind of grips me about this? And if I can't answer some of those questions, then I'm not going to go into it, because that's an amount of thought food that I don't really want to get into. I mean, there's movies I've watched that were a complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. Got absolutely nothing from it. Would never watch it again. And they weren't like bad movies. They were like kids' movies or whatever. But I'm like, why did I watch this? And so you just have to be aware of like what you like. Because with that movie in particular, somebody recommended it to me, and I was like, it's a classic, and I watched it, and I'm like, this is garbage. So, anyway, what I'm saying is you have to be very careful of how much you're taking in, and be the master of that. If you think of yourself kind of, as we talked about in an episode a while ago, CEO for your life, just like what is being brought in. You're the CEO, right? People are bringing in things all the time, and you have to say, okay, that is worth our time. That is not. We have to be very careful. We have to be very clear about this. And the times I have not been clear about this have been disasters. Have been like, okay, I'm okay with just watching any YouTube and just whatever. I can just watch YouTube, watch basketball videos or whatever. And they get you excited, but there really isn't any thought food going on. The brain is not getting the workout it needs. And we need to work out that brain and make sure that we're feeding it good stuff too, so it can have good stuff to use when we need to use it. We need to work it out. The next thing to really consider is, when are you taking in all of this information? I've been very I've become a lot more deliberate about this when it comes to like breakfast. I usually don't have any devices near me at breakfast. I'll usually have like a book or something. That's what I am trying to do. That's like what I'm shooting for, because I really don't want to have this amount of information, this just giant onslaught. I don't want that. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on LinkedIn or YouTube for like, well, I'll just get on for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm like scrolling and I'm looking at, oh, that's super cool, that's super cool, and it's like I'm not doing anything anymore, and I've completely interrupted this. It's like you're at McDonald's eating, or someplace you really want to eat, and somebody just comes in with something else. It's like, here, eat this instead, and it's like, okay, like I was going after something else, I was trying to enjoy it, and now I'm being force fed this other stuff, and it's not like you like. It's so interesting because our brains, like we just have to be really careful, because we can get to the point where we're having like courses from everywhere, and we have to be very careful of that. I read something that when you get on your email for however long you get on it, for the next half hour, you're going to be thinking about email and some of that stuff that you saw, like it's going to be still in your brain. So you have to be like super careful. And this is frustrating to me, but it doesn't change the fact that it's true, is that you have to be very careful of when you're focusing on one task, and then be very clear of when you're going to do that. Because if you're trying to work and then you're also taking in information at the same time, again, you just have to be careful. I think it was Nerial who talked about when he was researching one of his books, he would have time to like look up blogs and stuff to help him with his reading, and he saw that as research. But it got to the point where it was more like procrastinating and it was holding him back. You have to have these times that this is when I'm going to work, this is when I'm going to work on this thing, and nothing is going to deviate me from it, because we love to consume things, we love to get more information. But the thing is, algorithms are blessed a lot when they consume content, video content. Us, we are blessed a lot more when we're actually using the material. What I was talking about earlier, like when you're actually putting that to work, that's when it really helps. And when you're putting something else back, that is super satisfying. To make something and put it out into the world. I hope this podcast helps out somebody as it's helping out me, and as I put it out into the world. And just having an idea of what your creation and consumption habits for the day look, I mean, it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer, because it helps you see like, okay, this is what I'm prioritizing. There's all these things that can excite me. Today, I've gotten wrapped up in this new game from the creator of Stardew Valley, Haunted Trocketeer, which looks cool, but like, is it as cool as some of the stuff I'm doing? To me, like, no, in this moment, I need to focus on some of these things that I want to focus on. That will come later. I can learn from that later, not now. I need to focus on this now. There was that. There was the new Enter the Spider-Verse thing. There's all these other stuff. I was like, holy cow, there's all this stuff and it's exciting, but I'm doing nothing. I'm sitting at my laptop when I have all this time to do whatever I want. And this is what I'm doing. Looking at this thing that I could do whenever I want. And that's how all of this stuff goes, is it's always there. It's an endless buffet. Endless buffet. YouTube videos, endless buffet. Facebook, endless buffet. I mean, you just have to be very clear, like, okay, I am not going to an endless buffet. I'm going to eat one thing, or I'm going to make one thing. I am not going to make one thing, and on the way home, or when I'm trying to finish it up, before I turn in that assignment or project or whatever, I'm going to go to the endless buffet of Facebook and feast until I hate myself. And that's a little bit harsh, but I felt very not good feelings towards myself after doing a lot of binging of different things. And again, it could all be really good content, but is it the best thing for you? Probably not. I don't think that's the best strategy for really anybody. You have to be growing, you have to be moving forward and using that information so it's like actually useful. At that time, this is something that Pat Flynn talks about all the time. Maybe not all the time, but he talks about how having a list of those videos that you want to watch to help you move forward is key, and then going after those. Like, you don't need to watch how to do this other thing that you don't need to focus on right now. Just focus on that one thing and get it done. And then you can move forward, you can do other stuff. So the real takeaway here is have like a clear time when you're not going to take in any more information of the day, and just rejoice in the information you already have, rejoice in all the experiences and moments and memories, feast on those, and yeah, because you don't want to have empty memories of just scrolling through Instagram. I have a bit too many memories of those, but I'm done with that forever. The final thought I really want to share about thought food is consider the provider and intent of the person that is giving out this thought food. If they're giving it out for free, there's a reason they're giving it out for free. Maybe it's so you can pay them money. Maybe it's so you can just consume and consume and consume more of it until you just can't consume more of it. But the thing about the human body is it always wants more. The natural part of us, natural tendencies are we always want more. More money, more satisfaction. We always want more. And if the provider is somebody that is giving you thought food that you know generally leads to binging of thought food or just doesn't lead to much good, then don't go after it. And I think you just have to sometimes just separate yourself completely from that. I think the construction industry is a great example of this. I remember I was trying to deliver some pizza, and there was this a couple months ago, and there was this road, and it was like a detour, and I could not go that other way. It was impossible. The construction company had made it impossible, so I had to go this complete other route, which took me a different way. And so you have to do that sometimes. You have to be very careful with yourself. Again, being the CEO of your life, you have to be aware of that. And if somebody is a creator that has provided a lot of value for you in the past, that helps you become your best self, that is helping you grow, that is helping you act on what you are doing, then double down on that. For me, Thomas Frank, James Clear, Danny Miranda, all of them, I've been consuming their content for a while, and I believe truly that it helps me to have better ideas and to go after my best self and to help me grow. Then there's other ones that may have been helpful in the past, video game content from when I was doing video game YouTubing, that are good, but for me to do that now, to look at that now, it really just kind of puts me back a little bit. It doesn't help in comparison to all these other things. Again, we have this buffet of tons and tons of content creators, and you have to be very careful of which ones you are investing in. And considering their intent is huge too. With all of these companies, a lot of them. Uh, I mean, the really cool thing too about this, there's some videos that I watch over again from Thomas Frank, for example, for clarity, for remembering what I want to go after. And so you can do that over and over again. It doesn't spoil. If you watch the same thing over again, with that, you've changed. You've become a different person to some degree. When you go back to it, you're going to have some new perspective from it. And so there's videos that do that. I think books are a super good example. I've been rereading Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's been so mind blowing. And it's like I slept on this book so bad. Like, why haven't I read it every single year since I read it first time? Like, what the heck? Why is this so good? It just blows my mind. I'm only on page 42. But why was that book written? It was written to help people be more effective people. It was written to help people improve their relationships, lives, productivity, mindset, paradigm, and I'm about all of that stuff. So it makes perfect sense that that would be useful to me to digest on a continuous basis. Then there's other stuff that, again, might be interesting or helpful, but is not going to provide the nourishment that I need at a big enough scale. I heard this really cool story that this podcast episode is very inspired by from a general conference talk that was given at my church a couple years ago. And it basically talked about these deer that were in a field and they were going to die because it was winter and they didn't have any food. And some really nice people are like, hey, let's dump some straw out and then they will have food for the winter, right? And this is not something that deer normally eat, but they're like, it'll help them get through the winter maybe. What ended up happening is the deers ate all the straw and they starved themselves with their stomachs full. And when I heard that for the first time from that conference address, I was mind blown. I'm like, so they ate all this food, but they didn't get any nourishment from it, and so they died anyway. And I think that is something that is happening in the world today. And the first step to combating that is to be aware of where you are currently investing your time, where you're currently investing that very, very most precious asset that is your time to building up your thought food. I think one of the best things I've done for myself is become very clear of where I am putting my attention and thoughts so I can build and continuously build an empire of thoughts and growth and stuff like that. Is I'm constantly trying to improve and get better at things, but I expose myself to some of the best ideas that I can find to help me do these things, and I'm always trying to get better, which helps my ideas grow and become not necessarily just bigger, but more effective and more power pointed to that problem. It also helps when I'm talking with other people that, people are a great provider of thought food too. Like talking with my parents, face to face now, right now, has been really special and really helpful. And has helped me remember that, I'm extremely blessed and I just have to keep on putting out good stuff out there and try to do as much good with what I know and try to build up others as I can. So considering where that thought food is coming from and the intent of it is absolutely crucial because there's always 2 points. There's always more than one thing that you're doing. So like when you buy a video game, you're also investing time because you're going to have to invest time to play the game, which time is precious as we went over before. So all these things require time. And there's also like there's benefits like yeah, you might get a lot of laughs out of this one video, but it's also going to take time and you won't be able to work on other stuff. And so you have to have that schedule in place, be aware of the provider and the intent, all that stuff. And of course, how much you are consuming it. And again, like I said before, this may not sound great to some people, but for me, having this in mind has helped me a lot and helped me be a lot happier. So with that all said, I hope this episode gave you some perspective on thought food, helped you consider like the amount you're taking in, when you're taking it in, and maybe the provider and intent of the person providing it and how you can use that to kind of help you to have a better idea of where you want to go and to grow and just to overall have a better diet of taking in information and using that information just to help you feel better about yourself and your situation and your overall growth. And definitely don't stop. Too much of any good thing is not good. And so you have to be very careful of that and just move on and create things in your own life because that will really give you a lot of joy. No matter how wonderful somebody's life looks, I mean, for me, it's a lot more exciting to work on things. Um, for me, it's always very fulfilling to create even that podcast research music playlist. Like, I'm so hype about that still. And so I need to like keep building projects and stuff like that are designed for a specific end and I'll be a lot happier. And once I can share some of that stuff out with other people, I think I'll be a lot happier too. But consuming all day long, like I have done before in the past, where you just do a lot of consumption, not much creation, is not going to get me there. But if I have very clear consumption habits and I'm aware of how I'm consuming, then that will help me a lot. There's some things that like track this for you. Like I know on my Nintendo 3DS it counts how much time you've put into things. Netflix doesn't do this, of course, because then you would feel bad. But there's other things, right? So just being aware of that, tracking it. If you have to track it yourself, track it yourself. If you become very clear and very diligent about this, I promise you it is going to make a difference. It definitely has for me. And that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to heal today. It'll be a better tomorrow. Well, I had